Missouri's marijuana industry is marking a major milestone tonight. Pot sales in the state continue to smash records just months after recreational sales got the green light. The state sent us these numbers showing the boom. In February, Missouri recorded just over $745 million in cumulative marijuana sales, so that includes both medicinal and adult use. In March, that number grew to more than $817 million and exceeded $992 million in April. You'll remember medicinal marijuana sales first started back in October of 2020, and now marijuana is a billion-dollar industry in the Show Me state with recreational marijuana. We asked the state, and it hit that $1 billion mark in sales on May 2nd of this year.